Hello everybody out there in YouTube land, this is Tyler. I'm going to talk about a particular topic that every single person go through. Even I've go through it myself. Whenever you are texting a particular person and then all of a sudden that person doesn't even respond or reply back to your text. And that whenever it comes to this type of scenario, whenever it comes to someone that does not reply to our text, it might be in a certain situation of you might send an uplifting message or by text, or it might be an encouraging word by text message, or it might be a love message by text, and that person doesn't even reply back or respond back to it. Or it comes to the point that both of you are conversating through text message and all of a sudden that person doesn't even respond back to you at all. Or it might be a particular scenario where that particular person, you are getting the time and the date where both of you are supposed to meeting up, and then both of you are texting about that, and then all of a sudden when you are at that particular place or at that particular location at that particular time, that person doesn't even show up, and then that person left you high and dry, and then it leads you to be texting that person, and then that person doesn't even respond back to you at all. So what this leads to, it leads to a lot of us getting mad, getting real upset, and then getting very disgusted about whenever that person doesn't even text us back at all. And then I'm just going to sit here and tell you that when most of us don't receive a text back due to being angry and getting upset, we have these feelings of that person is ignoring us. And then most of us will go to the point of whenever it comes to a person that does not reply back to our text, and we are having these feelings of feeling ignored by a person just because that person does not even text us back, we will text that person 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 times or sometimes 20 times in order to try and get a response back from that person. So what does this mean? You are just blowing up the living daylights out of that person's phone for that apparent reason in order for that person to respond back. And then most of the time 50-50 chance when that person is not going to respond back to you, or that person does respond back to you. And then when that person does respond back to you, then that person gets real mad, and then gets real upset, and then you get real mad, and then you get real upset at that person. So what I want to tell you that what to do whenever a person does not reply back or they do not respond back to your text. And I want you to listen to me very closely. And it depends on the two situations. And I'm just going to give you two situations that whenever it comes to the first situation, which I'm going to explain to you, whenever it comes to a person, you texting that person and that person does not respond back to your text message right then and there, or maybe an hour later, or maybe 3 or 4, 5, 10 hours later, and that all of a sudden that person comes back and responds with a text message the very next day with an explanation. I sit here and I tell you what to do in this type of situation. If that person comes back with an explanation on as of why they could not get back with you that certain day or yesterday, then in other words, I tell you and I ask you, have an understanding. Humble yourselves and, okay, that happened. I understand. You gave me an explanation, and be appreciative towards it. Simply because that person did not have to go out of his or her way to tell you about it. That's a sign and a symbol that that person cared about you. And that person cared enough to tell you that there was something going on. Rather, it might have been a family situation, or they might have been at work and they got so tied up at work and it was so busy at their workplace that they could not even get back to you. Or it could have been a particular situation that came out of the blue, came out of nowhere for that particular moment, and then they got so tied up in that particular situation they forgot for that moment to text you back. And that I sit here and I repeat it again. In that particular situation, have a deep understanding of that person. When that person comes back to you with an explanation, what to do, say it one more time. And this is the third time I want to repeat it. Understand that person's situation. Have an understanding. Have a compassion. Because that person cared enough about you, and which they didn't have to, but they saying that I care enough about you, I want to continue a friendship, or I want to continue a relationship with you. I just don't want to leave you hanging just like that. But in the second situation, or the scenario what I'm supposed to give you, if that person, or you text a person, let me redo that. If a person, if you go and text a person and that person does not respond to you and they do not reply to you, and then this is consistent that they never reply to your texts at all and they never respond back to your text at all, and this is consistent and ongoing, or if they come back 5 weeks later, or 6 weeks later, or a month later, or 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 months later with some lame ass excuse, I tell you what to do. Do not waste your time with that person, simply because that person was telling you you was not a priority at that particular time. You was not a priority to them at the first place. In other words, they didn't give a damn about you. So, whenever a person is ongoing, consistently doing that to you, or if that person comes back with some lame excuse, because a lot of people come back like 6 or 7 weeks later with some lame ass excuse, don't listen to it, because what you're doing is buying into their game, because people will play games with you when they are giving you some lame ass excuse. They giving you an excuse. They fear or whatever what you was going to do or what you was going to say. No. If that person had cared enough, they would have came to you the next day of what happened. That's right. They would have came to you what happened rather than waiting like 5 or 6 weeks later, or waiting like 6 or 7 months later, or 4 or 3 months later. That's telling you they're not bothered with you. They had other priorities. Rather than taking the time to give you an explanation, why would they wait like 6 or 7 months later? And I'm going to sit here and I'm going to say this again. Don't waste your time with those type of people. If they're consistently doing it to you and you notice it, you can stop it. If that person comes back to you with a lame excuse, don't even respond back to them. Ignore them, because them people are not worth wasting your time with. And just going to cut this video short. And for those who watched this video, and for those who liked and enjoyed this video, I give you the invitation to subscribe to this channel, because you will receive weekly content every single week. Thank you, and have a great and awesome evening.